So, developmental delayed, what is it? It is a group of conditions due to an impairment in physical, learning, language, or behavioral areas. Conditions begin during the developmental period and may impact day to day functioning and usually last throughout a person's lifetime, and that is defined by the CDC. But what are some of the causes or the risks? Most developmental disabilities begin before the baby is born, but sometimes they can happen after birth because of injury, infection, or other factors. As an example of injury, Drew Lynch from America's Got Talent, I don't know how many of you watch, but he is a stand-up comedian, but he stutters and stammers a lot, and that it's really hard to get a sentence out. And he didn't always have this stutter. He actually had it from an injury from playing softball in high school, where a softball was actually thrown at his throat, and it had damaged some vocal cords. And from that point on, he has had this disability of stuttering and stammering, and is expected to honestly have that disability throughout the rest of his life. But how common are these developmental delays? And that's not just the stuttering and the stammering. I mean, that's all of the conditions and impairments in physical, learning, language, and behavioral areas. But it is common in about 1 to 6 children in the U.S. Has a developmental delay. And that was taken from a study back in 2006 to about 2008. Over the past 12 years, 1.8 million more children with developmental delays was in the same time frame, that 06 to 08, compared to a decade earlier. And so this is something where these developmental delays are increasing. But because of this and other studies, it shows an increasing need for help, education, and social services, and more specialized health services for people with these developmental delays. All children need to be monitored or screened. Generally, monitoring is when the child is born to about 5 years of age. Screening is at a specific ages, like 9, 18, 24, 30 months, or any time that you have a concern. We want to monitor our children because we know them best. We have these ideal mindsets of when they should be reaching these milestones. So if they are not hitting these certain milestones by a certain age and you grow concerned, then you actually need to speak to a health specialist, aka your doctor. Usually when a delay is identified early enough, changes can be made to where the child doesn't have to live with a disability forever, or the services that could be provided are a little cheaper. So it's always better to be screened or monitored early, rather than waiting last when you have a sudden knowledge that, yeah, this is an issue. Some other interesting facts. The prevalence of autism actually increased 289.5%. The prevalence of ADHD increased to 33%, and the prevalence of hearing loss had actually decreased 30%. But males had twice the prevalence of any developmental delay than females, and more specifically, they had a higher prevalence of ADHD, autism, learning disabilities, stuttering, stammering, and other developmental delays. These developmental disabilities can begin anytime during development, up to 22 years old, and then will last throughout their lifetime. As an example of that, I have a little sister. She actually started stuttering, and I know all my examples are with stuttering, and I know that's not what these developmental delays are, but that's something that's personal to me. My little sister, I don't know what caused it. I wonder if it's stress from my brother leaving to serve a mission or something. But all of a sudden, she just started to stutter and stammer, and so she has a hard time getting sentences out. And it takes some time for her to phrase any thoughts, and to really voice any opinions, because she kind of grows embarrassed and kind of frustrated that she's not able to speak something so clearly or quickly as she wants. And so that's something that she's kind of struggling with right now, is learning to kind of deal with that and kind of going through exercises that helps her kind of not to stutter. So that's just a personal example. But there are services that can be provided to these children. There are many different kinds of services because every child's needs are a little different or unique. There are some services, there's some that are kind of considered traditional services, that their respite, rehabilitative support, family education, habilitative intervention and evaluation, family training, therapeutic consultation, interdisciplinary training, and crisis intervention and supports. And so those are just some of the things that the state or the U.S. offers for these developmental delays. Now, for these services, there are eligibilities. I couldn't find many. However, there are two. For children, they need to be verified and eligible for Medicaid. And adults actually have an eligibility that they need to make sure that they're financially eligible for Medicaid. So not only do they need to be eligible for Medicaid, but they also have to be eligible to be financially secure to have it. These developmental delays are something that is very common in the U.S. and from studies showing that there is an increase. And so it's really important to make sure we're aware of the services and aware of kind of the challenges that these children and people have in our society and communities. And so we're better able to help them and support them when needed.